Okay, so tonight we're going to do Parashat Chayei Sarah. This is about the life of Sarah. Even though in the beginning of the Parasha we see a description of her funeral, what is really taking place is a eulogy, an important eulogy, where Abraham, her husband, describes her life. Therefore, I prefer to call it not the death of Sarah, but celebrating her life. And that is what Abraham Avinu does in front of everyone who attended, is to talk about the successes of Sarah, his wife, not only as a wife, but as a mother, as a woman, as a friend. She contributed a great deal. What you find, therefore, if you look at the words in describing the funeral, is a bechi and a misped. There's both crying, mourning for her, and eulogizing her. Crying for what we lost, for what we had once upon a time, and we no longer have. It's a big loss for humanity, not just for Avraham Avinu. And so he points out what qualities she had that are not so common. Very, very special woman, and now she's gone. Who will replace her? Who will take her place? That's the bechi. But you have the misped, you have the eulogy in pointing out what those qualities are so that we can learn from them. That's ultimately what the eulogy is supposed to serve. It's not just to talk about the person themselves, what they accomplished, but what is it that they had that perhaps we can learn from. And that's very significant when we're talking about our forefathers. Everything that is recorded in the Torah, all that is documented, is for us to learn from. And all these parashiot in the book of Bereshit, but even in Shemot and in Vayikra, contain many, many valuable lessons, especially about certain characteristics, the good and the bad. We see individuals who were exemplary, very, very special and unique. But we see some individuals who failed, who had a particular characteristic that was not good. All of this is recorded for us to learn from. In the same way that the rabbis tell us there were many, many prophets, but only those prophets or prophecies that were necessary for future generations, only they were recorded, which we have the books from. But there were many, many more prophets. What we need is what was written down. So there are no extra words here. Everything is necessary because there's something to learn from. Sarah Imenu was a very special woman in that she contributed a great deal. In other words, even though she probably was a good cook, she probably was a very good wife. In various ways she did her job, but she contributed. And that is what everybody needs to know, that they're here in this world for some specific, unique mission that is only theirs. They have something to contribute. And if we succeed in contributing, then we partially succeeded in life, in doing our part. A lot of people make the mistake in thinking that this is only about themselves, and they focus on themselves. Here, Sarah was focused on doing for others. So she had it right from the very, very beginning. She and Avraham Avinu, as well as, of course, Yitzchak and Rivka, and Yaakov and Leah and Rachel. It's not just about ourselves. It's what is it that we can do to contribute to Hashem's world. And that is why, when the Torah points out in detail how many years she lived, what is that so important to know the number of years, is that, as the rabbis say, Kulam Shavim L'Tovah. They were all equally good. Even in her later years, when she's already older and perhaps not as active, still, the years were consistent. In other words, she was always good. It's not that she was once upon a time not so good, not so active, not so caring. Kulam Shavim L'Tovah means all the years are good. They were all beneficial. They were worth living. That is what's important over here, is not how long she lived, but what did she do with her time. That is much more important. A lot of people live a long life, but they didn't do too much with their time. So it's important what a person did with his time. There's a beautiful mashal, a very nice, cute story of an individual who left this world and went upstairs. And he left at the age of 90. And when he comes to heaven, they have a matzeva, they have his tombstone upstairs too, where everything is recorded about who he is, his name, his father's name, and how long he lived. And it says on this matzeva that he was 2 years old when he left. And he tells the angels upstairs, you have it wrong. I lived to the age of 90. It's a mistake. And they said, no, it's not a mistake. What is written downstairs is a mistake or misleading. That's perhaps how long you existed in this world, the true age of your actual contribution, what you did, what you accomplished in this world. That's what matters. It's only 2 years out of 90. Imagine all this waste. Yes, we sleep a lot. There's a lot of time that is just wasted. So what really counts upstairs, what they really take into consideration is the years, the amount of time that we contributed, that we observed the mitzvot. That is what matters. That is the life that we lived. And that is what is being pointed out here about Sarah. These are the years that she lived, not that she existed. In the upper world, they not only know what we did, they also know the true value of the human being. And that is something that we don't always know. We don't know everything there is about everyone, even if they are close relatives. We think we can figure someone out by seeing how he behaves, by how he performs. But what is his true erech? What is his true value? You must have heard many, many times people talk about what is his worth. You know how much this guy is worth? He's worth billions of dollars. To a lot of people, worth is money. How much real estate he has. What does he have in his bank account? But we know, based on what we've studied in the Torah, that that's not the real worth because you don't take it with you. So what is the real value of the human being? It's not the money. So there's an interesting mitzvah in the Torah that many people are not familiar with. Even though they may have read about it, it's in the Torah. They don't really know what's behind it. It's called erkecha, the value. Sometimes you have someone who wants to give of himself. He wants to give his value. You may have heard the expression, his weight in gold. I'm going to give his weight in gold. So, what do you do if somebody says, I want to give his value, or I want to give my value to the Hekdesh, to the holy, to the temple? Then the Torah specifies what's the value of the man or the woman depending on their age. What's the value of the child? The Torah has specific values for men and for women, and they're different depending on the age. He or she is worth so much depending on their age. But that value that the Torah is talking about, which in the end needs to be contributed to the holy, is more symbolic. It's what the Torah considers the value of that individual. But the real value, the ultimate value of the human being, as we said earlier, is what he does in this world. The mitzvot that he observes. That is his real value. And the Rambam, Maimonides, says, don't think that value of mitzvot has to do with the number of mitzvot, how many. Don't think it has to do with the big or smaller mitzvot. Value of mitzvot only kel deot. Only the God who knows, who has knowledge of all of this, knows. We don't know. He knows with what intent. What was our intention when we observed the mitzvah? How hard we worked to do the mitzvah. That's what matters. So the true value of a deed, of a mitzvah, only Hashem knows. Was it a very productive? What are the consequences of this man's actions? Or God forbid, what were the consequences of this man's sins? Was it very damaging? Or were his words, were his deeds very beneficial to someone? So only God can evaluate the true contribution of a person's actions. So only Hashem knows a man's true worth. So the real erech, or the real erkecha of the human being is known upstairs, not what we think down here below. We don't see the whole picture. Kavanah is very important in the mitzvah. What was he thinking when he was doing it? Perhaps he was thinking about reward. Perhaps he was thinking about being honored. That's not so pure. The kavanah, the intent, is very, very important. Those who do it for the sake of heaven, of course, are on a higher level than those who just do it because it's routine, it's my duty, and I just have to do it. Only Hashem, therefore, can evaluate the true worth of a person based on what he was thinking and how he actually did it. I can tell you from my mother, may she rest in peace, that after 50 years of not seeing a former student, she met up with them. She was a teacher. And they said to her, I still remember, after 50 years, what you taught me and how it left an incredible impression on me, a positive impression. They were so thankful for it. It meant so much to them. And my mother totally forgot about what she said or what she taught to that particular student on that day. She remembered somewhat the student. But look how people can remember the good and the bad, by the way, what they may have heard or what was done to them so many years ago. Yes, teachers can have a tremendous influence and therefore have to be extra careful in how they communicate the teachings, in what they say, in how they handle students, even if that student is misbehaving. It's really an art to be able to teach. You need to have the patience, but so is to be a parent. It's not automatic that just because you were able to have a child that you will know how to raise them. You have to be careful because you don't want to make mistakes. You only get one chance, pretty much. Unless somehow you're able to correct some of these mistakes, the damage may have been done. So what is really the secret of success here? What did Sarah have? What did Abraham have that they were able to carry out their job successfully? And the reason I ask this question is because we all have our challenges. We have difficult days. There are difficult people out there. And it's not easy to do the job, even though you mean well. You want to do the right thing. And the answer is very simple. They were always thinking of the other, not about themselves. That's the key. You want to know the key? One of the keys to success here is not to be selfish about it. What can I do to help the other individual? So when a teacher or a friend has the other person in mind, hopefully, of course, they know what they're doing, they are possibly going to be more successful than had they been thinking about themselves. Because here, they're willing to try hard, they're thinking of somebody else, not about themselves. When you think about yourself, things don't go so smoothly. When you think about the other, and you try hard enough, hopefully that individual will pick up on that. He really cares about me, therefore there's a chance that they will be more receptive of it. So, Sarah and Abraham are definitely unselfish in their motives, and as a result of that, they're definitely very, very successful. But this is not enough. It's not enough to just do things in the proper way, in an unselfish way. You have to care about it. A lot of us sometimes love certain things, we like to do certain things, but you may reach a point where you're tired or some difficulty that is very difficult to overcome, and you may just give up or not be interested to work hard. People also have to understand the value of what they're doing. You know how big of a mitzvah this is, you know how special it is. So even though you have what it takes to teach, you have what it takes to impress upon someone, because you're unselfish, it's not enough. You have to really care about it. You have to be willing to work hard. And that is why we see that Abraham and Sarah succeeded in making nefashot. Et ha-nefesh asher asu b'charan, the rabbis tell us, when it says that they took along with them wherever they traveled, the souls that they made. What do you mean they made souls? People that they converted to monotheism, who they were teaching about the ways of God, to be kind to others. There were people that actually followed them, followers. But you don't hear about them later on. What happened to all of those people to whom Sarah and Abraham gave so much, with whom they were successful? What happened to them? You don't hear any more about them. The commentaries tell us that they disappeared. Disappeared meaning they just went their way. They were not consistent. So here, you're getting a lot, you go along with it, you appreciate it, but you have to be consistent. So at some point, their initial excitement waned, left them. It could also be, I was thinking, it could also be that maybe they didn't keep in touch. sometimes people move away, they don't keep in touch, and they don't have a teacher where they went. There could be other reasons too. But what we learn from this is that despite the fact that they were convinced of the truth of what they were learning, you have to be consistent. You have to continuously learn, review your learning, consult with those that can teach you or answer your questions. You can't deal with certain issues on your own. You can't figure everything out on your own. You need to ask those who may know, who are more experienced. So that's possibly why a lot of those individuals just disappeared, even though initially they were followers of Abraham and Sarah. So even though that's the case with many of the followers, that was not the case with Sarah and Abraham themselves. So when Abraham is eulogizing Sarah, what is he saying? He's saying, Sarah, you know what was her success? You know how she prevailed? You know how she was able to maintain her purity all these years? Lo isicha da'ata. She was never distracted from her goal. She had clarity about her tachlit. This is what I want to do in life. Well, if you have clarity, and this is what you're set to do, and you're not distracted from it by other things, then there's a better chance that you will be consistent for many years to come. The same was with Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu was not distracted at all. And there were many things that easily distracted him. That could have misled him, God forbid. I mean, he's human just like anybody else. Of course he had a special soul. We know that. But we all have free will. There's things that can easily distract us, take away the attention that we need to give to something important, and give it away to something that is not as important. So we find that Abraham and Sarah stand out in this important area of being unselfish, caring about others, and being focused on what they want to accomplish. Great, but we also see the opposite example. We see the opposite example in this parasha and in other parashot of individuals who are very selfish. It's incredible to see opposites. Take a look, for example, let's begin with Betuel. Remember Betuel? Betuel is the father of Lavan, the father of Rivka. Eliezer meets up with them. Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, is sent on a mission to find, hopefully, a wife for his son Yitzhak. Go to my family, and hopefully you will find her there. So, sure enough, Eliezer finds Rivka. And you know the story how, right? Well, he tells him the story. Eliezer tells the family the story how, wow, I was able to, on the first day that I arrived, find the right girl for my master's son. What did they say? What was their reaction after hearing all the details? Wow, me'Hashem yatsa davar. This is from God, right? Nonetheless, the Midrash describes that night, Betuel was planning on poisoning Eliezer. He didn't want Rivka to go with him. And instead what happened is that the angel switched the poison, switched the plates. Told him to Eliezer, eat, and the angel switched the plates and he died. Betuel wanted to interrupt, wanted to interfere, wanted to disrupt the plans of Eliezer. Why? Didn't you just say yourself, me'Hashem yatsa davar? You said yourself, you admitted that this is from God. Then why have second thoughts, or why try to kill this guy to take away his money, of course? Why try to stop this thing? You said yourself it's right. Look at Lavan. We're going to soon read about Lavan, the brother of Rivka. He has Yaakov working for him for many years. And when Yaakov eventually leaves, he admits to him, I noticed by Varecheni Hashem biglalecha. Hashem blessed me because of you. So long as you were by me, working for me, I was blessed. Remember? Isn't that an admission? He recognizes that it's a fact. If that's the case, why did you try to cheat him so many times? Lavan Harami, cheater, liar, thief.
To kill him also.
To kill him. How? How could you do that? I mean, you admitted that he blessed you, or that you were blessed because of him. It doesn't make sense. Next guy, Adoniyahu, which we read about in Daf Torah, by the way. One of the sons of David HaMelech. Very charismatic guy. He thought he would be the next king. David is almost about to die. He's old. And Adoniyahu says, I'm taking over. And he prepares his celebration, his inauguration. Calls all his friends. He doesn't call Natan Navi, Natan the prophet. He doesn't go consult with David, his father. Perhaps you have somebody else in mind. Why not do that? Be on the safe side. So if you read the words carefully there, when it describes about what Adoniyahu was doing, it says mitnaseh. He was aggrandizing himself, which really tells us that he was arrogant. Yes, he thought highly of himself. I'm the most fit, the most qualified. That was not exactly what Hashem had in mind. Why think that you are the one? Perhaps you're wrong. Perhaps it's a mistake. Why don't you find out? When a person is arrogant, he doesn't think about that perhaps he's wrong. That perhaps it's someone else, that's his brother, Shlomo HaMelech, who was a young boy then, barely 13. He's going to be the next king. So you see that the arrogance got in the way of good judgment over there. What are all these examples of? People who are thinking about themselves, not about what's good for others, necessarily. About themselves, they want the job. Next guy, the famous Ephron. In the beginning of the Parasha, you have this individual who owns a plot of land, and Abraham wants it to bury his wife. Please, call him, because I need to negotiate with him. And what does Ephron tell him? For you, I do anything you want. Please, be our guest. Take any plot you want. The choicest of the plots. You are the prince of the land. Go ahead. In other words, it's free. You think it's free? That's what he first said. Later on, when Abraham insists on paying. He says, no, I'm not taking anything for free. And there was no Chunezadan there. He didn't have to try to bargain with him. He says, I'm going to pay the top price, the 400 silver coins. So Ephron says, yeah, 400 between me and you, it's no big deal, right? It's okay, 400. Wait a minute. Originally he said it was nothing. It's free, it's a gift. Between friends like us, and now between friends, 400. You see from the behavior, from the talk, what this person is all about. Ephron, just like the rest that we just mentioned, were thinking more about themselves. When people think about themselves first, that's what you see. You see not as much caring about the other individual, not as much willing to go out of their way, and definitely not to sacrifice for someone else. If it's too difficult, too painful, So these are all the individuals that we just mentioned, mechunasim betoch atzmam, they're focused on themselves, they're selfish, as we call them, self-centered. Not interested in helping, not interested in doing for others, unless it's of course for money. Well, don't think that this is a rare phenomenon. This is something that of course we see every day. In our life we come across people who are like that, who have that kind of a nature. So when Avraham Avinu sends Eliezer on this mission to find the soulmate of Yitzhak, to find him a wife, he needs to make him swear. Take an oath that you go to exactly where I'm sending you, not to any other place, and that you bring a wife for my son from there. Obviously, if you find her and she doesn't want to come, then you're free to go. I'm not going to hold you responsible for that. Why make him swear? This is a devoted servant who he trusts. Yes, but in life there are some hurdles and some difficulties. And sometimes people might say, well, I couldn't do it in any other way. Unless I gave in, unless I went somewhere else, unless I did that. Avraham Avinu is realistic. He knows human beings are frail. He knows that there are pressures. And Eliezer is no different. I have to make him swear, because hopefully by swearing the Shebuah, that will restrain him. He won't just be able to go anywhere on his own. He will obviously respect that Shebuah. But speaking about soulmates, this parasha has an emphasis on soulmates, on the match made in heaven, which is pretty much what happens just about all the time. God is the one that puts people together. There are, of course, exceptions where people insist on marrying someone for their money and marrying someone for their beauty, and even though that's not their match, and sometimes God says, okay, you want this? You sure? She's not for you. And He lets them fall, make the mistake. I have several lectures about that. How to recognize your soulmate, about marriage in general. This is an important parasha in discussing this subject. What we find here in this parasha is that Abraham, in choosing a wife for Yitzchak, makes a point to say, it needs to be from my family. What's so special about his family? They're into idols, idol worshipping, just like everybody else in the neighborhood. And the reason for it is because Abraham Avinu knows one thing. Yes, it could be that those people have the wrong ideas about life, the wrong philosophies, but there's kindness there. From his family, you will find kindness. So pretty much that's what is being communicated to Eliezer. I need a girl who's kind. You will find that over there. So go there. So kindness is something that we're already familiar with, because we've seen that Abraham Avinu himself was such an individual, and so was Sarah. But in this parasha, you get to see a little bit more of a picture of that kindness, or the beautiful qualities that Abraham Avinu had. It's important to realize that it's not just because he was a good host. Everybody thinks of the kindness of Abraham Avinu was because of his achnasat orchim, how he loved having guests. No. If you actually read the story of Abraham in the various parashiyot, you will see other additional examples of his chesed. For example, remember when he helped the king of Sodom and brought them back? Yes, when he went to battle against those kings. They wanted to pay him. No, I'm not taking anything from you, zero. He could have easily taken compensation. No, he didn't want. What else? We see other examples. At the burial, he insists on paying. From all of these, you see that Abraham Avinu is not hungry for money. It's not that he wants something for free. On the contrary, he wants to give. He doesn't want to take. So therefore, Eliezer is searching exactly those qualities. But I had a question. If you're pointing out that that's what you want, is a kind-hearted young girl, what if she's lazy? What if she's an angry person? Why just put an emphasis on kindness? She's kind. You know what the answer is? Someone who's really kind has all the good qualities. You don't have to worry about them being lazy. The fact that they're kind, they're not going to be so lazy. They're not going to be angry. They're kind-hearted. And that is why in Pirkei Avot, in the Ethics of Our Fathers, when there's a question there that was posed to various rabbis, which quality should a person develop, cultivate the most of all the good qualities that there are out there? And the conclusion over there was, Lev Tov, a good heart. Even though it says there the importance of having a good friend, of having a good positive eye, a lot of other good qualities, the conclusion was the one that really matters the most, Lev Tov. Why? Because if you have a good heart, then you will have everything else too. That's the center. That's the most important one. That needs to be cultivated. Nobody's just automatically born with it. People are born with certain predispositions, certain good qualities, but this has to be cultivated. This needs a lot of work. There are all kinds of situations where people don't want to be helpful. We have to know that sometimes it's a mitzvah, even if it's painful, even if it's not easy. As I've said many times, a real Baal Chesed, one that really believes in doing kindness, does kindness even if it hurts him, even at times when he's not in the mood. Otherwise, if he only does it when he feels like it, that's not called real Chesed. So, having kindness is having a lot of good qualities. Okay, but wait a minute. We just said that that family was idolatrous. They didn't really believe in God. Even though there appears to be a contradiction, because they did say, "Me'Hashem yatsa davar." They agreed that God orchestrated this, that you were able to find a match. So they do believe somehow that God exists, but they're into idols. Isn't that a problem too? This is the home where Rivka was raised. She grew up there, even though she's still young. So how come Abraham Avinu is not concerned about that? Her brother, her father, believe in idols. And the simple answer is, because that's just in the head. De'ot, philosophy, you can change. Midot, character, is much more difficult to change, to uproot. That needs to be implanted. And the earlier on, the better. The earlier on that we implant certain characteristics in the child, the better. Which is why Abraham and Eliezer wanted to rush Rivka out of this home. Let's get her out quickly. She was still young. And they were afraid. They were saying, the family was saying, let her stay here for a while. She's still young. Okay, fine. This is the match. You know, sometimes parents say, your son to my daughter when they're very, very young. You've seen that? You've heard that?
Yes.
Okay, maybe this will be the case. And maybe that's what they wanted to do here. Okay, fine, she's reserved. No, Eliezer says, I'm taking her now. Because you don't want this girl to stay in this house. A house where all they think about is money. I've talked about this before, where you sometimes have children who all they hear their parents talk about is money. Did you see the wedding this guy made? You know how much money he spent on flowers? Did you see this? Did you see that? Oh, when we make a wedding, we're going to also do something like that. We can't do anything less. It's all about chatunot pe'er. There was elegant weddings and exaggerated amounts of expenses. For what? For a couple hours of a meal? They want to impress. This will not help the couple stay married. On the contrary, it may make things worse. It may bring jealousy, it may bring fights. Money, is that what they're going to argue about? Is that what they're going to talk about? That's all people sometimes talk about because they have nothing else to talk about. Real important things in life are not discussed, are not brought up on the table, and that's what the children overhear. What are the parents talking about? That's what they're going to follow. That's what they're going to talk about. It's important to them, it's going to be important to us too. Let's get Rivka out of this house where they're selfish, where they think about themselves. Philosophies, that's easier to change. People have changed their minds. Midot, character, takes a lot more work. Right now she still has that character. She's kind. They notice that. Eliezer saw it in Rivka. Perfect. But let's not leave her behind, otherwise things could get worse. With time, things can change. Whereas, look at Abraham Avinu. Besides his kindness, the Torah says that Hashem birach et Abraham bakol. He blessed him with everything. Why tell us all of a sudden bakol? We know that. He had a lot. No. The rabbis tell us when it says bakol, that means he was content. He didn't need a lot. So yes, he had so much, but the reason why this is being emphasized is to tell us he felt he had everything. He didn't care about these things so much. He was content. And to be content is what makes someone happy, really happy. Because he's not jealous, he's not coveting, wanting more and more and more, never satisfied, never happy. So look at the difference between those people who wanted so much, who wanted more, are never happy, and Abraham Avinu. This is the house that Rivka is coming into. And that is why the younger, the better. Very important to remember that to get married, if everything goes well, and there are no accusations from above, and people are not unnecessarily picky or unnecessarily push it off, if everything is normal, then Hashem makes it happen at a normal age. There are people whose mazal is to get married later. Fine. There's a reason for that too. Remember, it's all from Shamayim.
It is not because of this that he lost his soulmate.
Who?
Supposing a boy, that he doesn't...
Sometimes he loses if he unnecessarily pushes it off. And then at the age of 58, where is she? She's not going to wait for you. Right, so people can lose through their own free will, through their own actions. But otherwise, if you let Hashem do his job, it will happen at the right time. Why some later, some younger, only he knows. We have to pray. That's all we can do is pray and accept the fact that he runs the show, not we. So as long as we do everything right, we have no reason to be worried. However, you know where you need to be worried? Not if I will get married or not, whether you stay married. To get married is easier. It's relatively easy if you find the right person. How about staying married? So many people get divorced these days. That's trickier. That's not so simple. So why are there so many divorces today, especially, more so than in the past? Very simple. There's not enough chesed. What was chesed all about? What did we say? Chesed kindness means to do for the other. And here, they're just thinking about, what can you do for me? Make me happy. It's not about you, it's about us. Did you forget about that? When people get married later in life, and they were so accustomed for so many years to be single, it's difficult for them. All of a sudden they have to share their life with somebody else, to give to someone else. Just for some people it's difficult. For those who are kind by nature, it's a little easier. They know what it is to share, to give. So, how can we help somebody develop chesed? I have various tips. I'll just share with you one right now. It's a good idea to get used to in life, to let people go first. You know how you're standing in line, or there are all kinds of situations where people can go either first or last, or where there's a line, where people take turns. Let others go first. If you are easy about that, letting others get first, let others go first, then that could help in developing that sensitivity that one needs to be kind towards others. What do we see so far about midot, about character, is that character refinement. I have a whole series about all types of characteristics that need to be refined. Character refinement is a tremendous avodah, it's a tremendous job that takes a lifetime. This is something that we have to engage in, be involved in at all times. And I think it's the Gaon of Vilna, I don't remember for sure. He said that if one has lived his life and never worked even on one midah, he didn't accomplish anything. Even though we may not be able to eradicate a bad midah completely, we can restrain it, we can control it. Because you can't change completely, but you can control yourself. You can get into the habit of doing good things. And you can train yourself not to do the bad not to do the bad things. If we learn about it, and we have the willpower, the interest, of course, then it's possible. So, in this parshiot, we see various individuals, some of them who are good, who have good qualities, and some of them who have very, very bad qualities. Just to spend a couple minutes about soulmates. So, in this week's parasha, we do see clearly that Rivka is very special. She's chosen not only because she's from that family, but also because she has the qualities that Abraham is looking for his son. Sure enough, it happens to be that she is also the soulmate. In other words, she's the one that Hashem had in mind. So when the Torah describes to us in great detail how this encounter came to be, it's miraculous, because Eliezer did not have a GPS. Not only did he arrive quickly, much quicker than usual, to his final destination, he right away met up with her. He barely had time to look around and ask, and here she is. What is that? If not a sign from Shamayim that she is the designated one. Wouldn't it be beautiful if everybody had a similar kind of situation? Obviously, it doesn't work out exactly like that for everyone. As the rabbis tell us, sometimes it's the man, usually it's the man going looking for the woman, but sometimes she comes looking for the man. As in this case, Rivka came towards Yitzchak. Yitzchak didn't leave Israel. He stayed put. So Abraham therefore had to ask Eliezer, do me a favor and go find this girl for him. So zivugim, matches happen in various ways, in all kinds of ways. But what is the common denominator of all the encounters of how people meet up with their second half? There's hashgacha. There's divine providence from above. And many times it's very open, it's clear, you see it's miraculous. So as long as the individual has no kitrugim, has no accusations against him, as long as there's no major issues against him, then it will be easier. But as I said earlier, we have no clue why some people get married later and some people earlier. We don't understand. That's up to him, that's his department. And even though Hashem does everything, soulmates is clearly his department because he knows which soul goes with which soul. So it's not just a matter of mazal here. Hashem is the one that matches them up. He knows who needs to be with whom and which children need to come out of this couple. So it's not an easy thing for anybody to do, even though a lot of people think they're good matchmakers. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. Hashem is the one that ultimately knows the correct one. Okay, if that's the case, we need to understand that if everything goes right and people find each other, and this is the correct soulmate, this is the right match, then why don't people stay married for too long? As we said earlier, divorces happen as a result of a lack of chesed. But let's assume there is chesed. Let's assume that the two of them are good people. You still have divorces. Don't think divorces only happen amongst the bad people. Divorces even happen amongst the good people. Now, there are cases where divorce is the only choice. And I'm not going to talk about it because there's always exceptions. But you know what those exceptions are about? Sometimes those exceptions have to do with terrible mistakes that people make. So in the end, even a potentially good marriage where the two of them are really meant for each other ends up in divorce because of mistakes. Because if this is a divorce as a result of a total mismatch, which happens as well, somehow they got married for some reason, it was meant to be for just a short time, they're totally not for each other, it's understandable. These things happen too. But you should know, sadly, the majority of divorces is between soulmates, between people who were supposed to be married for many, many years. What went wrong? Mistakes. Now, some mistakes are easy to repair. Some mistakes are more difficult to repair, but the two have to be willing to repair them. If one or the two of them says we're not interested, or it's too late, all kinds of excuses like that, then obviously it's not going to go anywhere. So that's sad. Very, very sad, and I see this all the time. We don't understand why people get divorced. It could be all kinds of reasons, but we do know that many of this could have been averted had they had the proper guidance, had they not made the mistakes. So guidance is important. You have to learn when you get married. The young couple needs to learn what it is to be married. What is a man all about? What is a woman all about? What are the expectations? And not to have too many expectations either. So hopefully with the right education, but also with the good midot, with good character, there's a better chance that the two of them will stay married. So just to give a little bit of an idea of what can be done to avoid disappointments, to avoid ill feelings, what I like to do is I like to stress that every human being has something good. No one is perfect. We all have our weaknesses. Therefore, it's a good idea to train ourselves to look at the following. What do the two of you have in common? What do the two of you agree on? Not disagree on. Let's now focus on what do you agree on and what do you have in common. And sir, can you tell me all the good qualities she has? And lady, can you tell me all the good that he has? I'm sure there's some good. Unless we're talking about a monster, she or he has something good. Focus on the good. Don't focus on the weakness, because we all have them. You married each other perhaps because of those weaknesses. You need to help her. She needs to help you because of those weaknesses. That's why you're together to begin with. What do you think? It's going to be just smooth? A bed of roses, nothing to work on? We all need to work on something. It's the two of you together that will hopefully have the strength and the blessing to succeed. Two heads are better than one. So when the Torah talks about marriage, it talks about an ezer kenegdo. I will give him a helpmate. It says a helpmate. It's not a helpmate in the kitchen. It's a helpmate in growth. You want to grow spiritually. You want to grow and become a better person. A person that works on midot, on his character, he grows. The two of them need to grow. They're young. They need to grow, not physically, they need to grow spiritually. The growth will come about by accepting each other, by working on the midot, by learning more. This is how you grow. People are not doing enough of that. They're not thinking enough. They're playing with their iPhones. They're addicted to all kinds of movies and all kinds of things. What about growth? What about becoming a better person? So if there's no emphasis on that, it's not going to happen. And what happens as a result of that, there's a void, there's a vacuum here, which is fertile ground for a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of terrible things that will seep in from the outside culture. And the outside culture today is not too good, not too healthy, very decadent. So in order to protect ourselves from all that decadence, we need to have the right values. So therefore, focus on the good that each one has and work on refining the weaknesses. Don't just say, this is the way I am, accept me the way I am. That's not good. That's an excuse. What do you mean? This is the way you want us to stay? You're happy with that? You know it's not right. So why should she or he suffer as a result of that? Do your best. Admit it and work on it. Then, of course, there's something called love. You know, love is very powerful. It is. Everybody knows that. Love is something everybody wants to have. But not necessarily everybody wants to give. But it's powerful if it's there. A lot of people, however, mistake love with passion. I'm crazy about her, crazy about him. You must be crazy. What do you mean crazy? Love is not passion. And love, at first sight, is really not love. There may be good chemistry at first sight, yes. It's possible that you saw something, you detected something. It could be that this is a sign that you should look further into it, but you can't call it love. We find in this week's Parasha, when Yitzhak eventually meets up with Rivka, and he brings her into his tent, into his house, and he gets married. What follows after marriage? And he loved her. Psh, wait a minute. I thought love was supposed to come before marriage. No, the Torah is telling us love comes afterwards, not before. True love does not come before. It can't be there. Because love is about giving. It's about caring of another individual. You don't have that before. So therefore, with time, Yitzhak loved Rivka. And Rivka, of course, loved Yitzhak. With time, they got to know each other. They gave to each other. Love, therefore, followed after their marriage, not before. And that's one of the biggest mistakes people make today. They expect to be in love, and then they get married. You know, you have a lot of people who are girlfriend, boyfriend, and they got along. They got along so well that they say, oh, we're going to get married. We're in love. Somehow, after they get married, after a short while, they get divorced. But what happened? When you were friends, you didn't get divorced, or you didn't go each your way. How come now? Because marriage involves responsibilities. Oh no, now it's tough. To be married is not easy. When they were friends, they were not really responsible as much. So because of that, even though they may have fought here and there, they were okay with it. Now they got married, all of a sudden there's demands, all of a sudden there's pressures. There may be even children. You know, those beautiful kids, they're beautiful, but they take time. they take our attention, and yes, it's a big investment, but it's beautiful. You're giving love to them too. So it's not easy when you're splitting, of course, yourself between your wife and your kids and everything else. Still, if you really care and you know the importance of it, then you bear with it. So the Torah is telling us, look, how love came about with time. It matured. They got to know each other, and they continue to care about each other. And that is ultimately what we have to keep in mind, that Judaism teaches that true love is not passion. Even though passion is healthy, there needs to be some degree of passion, and the intimacy, of course, and commitment, and all of those things in a healthy relationship. But the real essence of love is to give, to care for another human being. Because when you care and you give to them, the act of giving is what will connect you, the two of you. The act of giving to Hashem by observing His mitzvot is what connects us to Him. The act of giving is not only connecting you, that is also the ingredient that Bezat Hashem will preserve the relationship for many years to come.